This patient had an accidental injury to the anterior capsule with a visco cannula, resulting in what you can see now, which is a traumatic disruption of the anterior capsule. So how does one proceed with a case like this? The patient was planned for a phacoemulsification. The questions you ask are, is it possible to do a safe phacoemulsification, or is it best to convert? Now here's what we did. We planned to proceed with phacoemulsification, and the biggest challenge was going to be how to ensure that the tears in the anterior capsule do not extend into the posterior capsule. Under viscoelastic cover, at the outset, the surgeon introduces a microrhexis forceps, and the tear at 5 o'clock, which did not extend all the way to the equator, is now converted into a bit of a circular tear. In the other two places, the tear in the anterior capsule has extended all the way to the periphery. In order to proceed further, the surgeon first makes a nick in the anterior capsule with a cystotome, now holds on to that little bit of the capsule that is raised and fashions a circular tear to meet the first tear that was initiated. The same technique is used to tear the remaining part of the anterior capsule. After creating the main 2.8 entry, the surgeon only slightly decompresses the anterior chamber and performs a very limited and a guarded hydrodissection. One needs to be very gentle while performing the hydro procedure because an overpressurization of the capsular bag could make these tears in the anterior capsule extend into the posterior capsule, resulting in a posterior capsular blowout. Now, having done that, the surgeon now proceeds with phacoemulsification. Phacoemulsification is also done under low flow settings and taking care to ensure that there are minimum manipulations during the nuclear emulsification procedure. This is achieved by creating minimum lateral separation while performing the direct chop, making small fragments and emulsifying them before trying to rotate the nucleus, avoiding rotation as far as possible. So in this case, you will notice after the surgeon actually emulsifies this tiny fragment, he then, without rotating the nucleus, impales and brings up one half of the heminucleus before subsequently downsizing and emulsifying it. What is achieved by this is the absence of any centrifugal forces which would have the potential of compromising an anyway compromised anterior capsule. Upon the completion of nuclear emulsification, it is extremely important to do a fluid visco exchange. Failure to do so would cause a sudden shallowing of the anterior chamber when the probe got out of the eye, and that could result in a very easy extension of the tear in the anterior capsule all the way into the posterior capsule. In fact, a fluid visco exchange needs to be performed at any stage after this, either when the phaco probe comes out of the eye or before the irrigation probe of the irrigation aspiration is removed from the eye. The extremely limited hydrodissection that was performed can make the subsequent removal of the epinucleus rather challenging. The torn flaps of the anterior capsule can sometimes pose a challenge because the surgeon, while performing irrigation aspiration, may accidentally hold on to one of those torn tags of the anterior capsule. So one needs to be mindful of the existence of those tags and be cautious not to pull on them during irrigation aspiration. Upon the completion of irrigation aspiration, under adequate viscoelastic, the surgeon now uses a Y-shaped hook and confirms the integrity of the anterior capsule and the posterior capsule. This is extremely important prior to the insertion of the intraocular lens. And finally, the insertion of the IOL into the capsular bag has to be extremely slow, controlled and careful. The IOL should be suitably rotated, and I believe that the trailing haptic should be introduced into the capsular bag at a point away from the anterior capsular tears. This is followed by the visco wash, and during this step I think we need to just take care that we avoid any rocking movements of the IOL, which, if excessive, could compromise this capsular bag. The surgeon then once just finally confirms on both sides that everything seems to be okay, the IOL is well within the confines of the capsular bag, and this is followed by the stromal hydration, which marks the end of the procedure. So here are your learnings in this case. If you have a compromised anterior capsule, provided you perform a slow motion phaco, that is phacoemulsification using very low parameters of flow and vacuum, minimize your manipulations within the capsular bag during nuclear emulsification, take care not to pull on the anterior capsule while doing an irrigation aspiration, take your time to perform an epinucleus removal, ensure that you do not have any excessive rocking motions of the IOL, and most importantly, do not ever let the chamber shallow by performing a viscofluid exchange at every step. You are likely to be able to succeed in performing a successful phacoemulsification even if you do have a compromised anterior capsule. Thank you very much. I hope this was a useful learning.